Why is it that if a man gets married, a man and woman get married, if they're separated, they're not gonna be together. They're not staying together. I can't go mess with other girls until I sign a divorce paper? Why?
No, yes, you can.
Okay, then what's the problem?
It's wild how the past always finds its way back to the surface, even after someone's gone. Irv Gotti might not be here anymore, but his name is suddenly everywhere again, and not for the reasons he'd want. The internet is on fire this week after Nelly's recent comments cracked open the story the industry tried to bury. Irv wasn't just Ashanti's mentor, he was obsessed with her.
Made those records. You know what I'm saying? Like, she wrote them, but she wrote them with the help of me telling her what to write. And all of y'all, whoever knows me, I don't lie. I don't lie. I'm not a liar. I'm gonna spritz it up and jazz it up. Is this the camera?
Yes.
Ashanti, you cannot spritz it up. You cannot jazz it up. The minute you put some spritzy and jazz it up, it's not a cover. So when it's not a cover, now it has to come back to me to clear it.
It all started when an old backstage clip of Nelly resurfaced on social media. A fan yelled, "What about Irv?" And Nelly laughed before saying, "Man, that boy didn't want to sign her. He wanted her." Just like that, the wound reopened.
You know what I mean? Like, me and Irv ain't never had a problem. We've always talked. You see what I'm saying? In that situation, you gotta be able to talk. Right. You know, so, we were able to speak.
Within hours, every blog and gossip page had the clip up, sparking a full-blown investigation into Irv Gotti's long, messy history with Ashanti, and the quiet pain it left behind. For years, people brushed off Irv's behavior as harmless nostalgia, a producer reminiscing about his glory days. But now, with Deb Lorenzo, his ex-wife, finally breaking her silence.
Still married, but we were separated when they were dating. I was used to it from the beginning, like him going and traveling. I just wasn't used to the women. That was like new, like, where did these hoes come from?
That story looks a lot darker. She's confirming what so many suspected but couldn't prove. Irv's infatuation with Ashanti wasn't creative. It was consuming. It wrecked his marriage, fractured his family, and warped his entire legacy. When Deb spoke, her tone wasn't angry. It was tired, heavy. She said,
"Sir, there's no boundaries. Like, he comes, we're there, we're available. He's living two lives, and for me, it doesn't make sense."
You have found that woman. It might not have lasted, but you have found...
She's definitely a special one, but she wasn't special enough for me to stop.
He was living two lives, one with us, one with her image in his head. Every word hit like a confession for a man who never learned boundaries. While she was raising kids and managing a home, Irv was out chasing a fantasy, convinced that fame excused everything. Back in the early 2000s, Murder, Inc. was untouchable. Ja Rule topping charts, Ashanti ruling R&B, Irv basking in the glow. But behind the cameras, the household was cracking. Deb remembered long nights waiting for calls that never came, watching him idolize another woman on national TV while treating his own family like background noise.
You know, I think...
You wanted people to forgive you when you do stuff?
Don't talk about the cheat. I'm a good chip off the old block, aside from the infidelity. You know, in my crazy mind, I thought that was life. This is my wife, this is my family, but this bitch is here to suck my...
What fans saw as confidence was really chaos. Even after everything, Deb tried to hold it together. She kept the family going, protected their kids from the gossip, and hoped Irv would grow out of whatever midlife obsession had taken him over. But that obsession only grew. He talked about Ashanti in interviews, on reality shows, even in casual conversations like he couldn't function without her name on his lips. And the worst part, he genuinely believed it was normal.
She used to wear these juicy sweats and her ass was looking fat. Her ass was looking great. So one day, I was like, "Yo, I'll take you home." She said, "Bet, cool." I walk her to a front door of her crib. She turns to say goodbye. And I just kiss her and grab her ass and just, mwah.
Friends said he'd call Ashanti his muse. Deb said he called her the one that got away. And when Ashanti moved on, especially with Nelly, Irv spiraled. The anger, the jealousy, the denial, it all poured into his home life. Every time he saw them together, Deb said he'd sulk for days.
The fear, it's the fear, and like, can I survive on my own? I feel stuck a little bit. And it's been like this for a while. I stayed this long because I was afraid. You know, when we first separated, I really thought, you know, Irv would come back home. I thought we would work things out. And then as time goes on, you see it's not going to work.
It wasn't business anymore, she explained. He took it personal. He couldn't handle the idea that she chose someone else. By the time Gotti's Way aired in 2007, the world was getting a glimpse of what Deb had lived for years. A man obsessed with controlling everything. His artists, his image, his family. Viewers thought it was just messy reality TV, but Deb's words now give it new meaning. Every argument, every cold shoulder, every awkward scene was a symptom of something deeper. An ego addicted to power and validation. And yet, through all that noise, Ashanti never once responded. That silence might have been her biggest revenge. She let her success speak while Irv kept talking himself into ridicule. Decades later, his interviews aged like confessions. Every time he spoke her name, it chipped away at what little dignity he had left. Now that Nelly has reopened the conversation, fans are revisiting those clips with new eyes. What once sounded like industry stories now sound like obsession manifesting in real time. His words about Ashanti's body, his need to tell her what to write, his bitterness when she moved on. All of it paints the picture of a man who never emotionally matured past rejection. Deb Lorenzo's interviews this week sealed it. Irv wanted ownership, not love, she said. He wanted to control everything he touched, even affection. And it's heartbreaking because behind that arrogance was a man unraveling and a woman quietly carrying the cost. Now, even in death, Irv's ghost hangs over every conversation. His empire might have built hits, but it also built heartbreak. And the people he hurt are finally reclaiming their stories. Nelly's just the spark that reignited it all. Deb's the voice giving it closure. And Ashanti? She's the proof that moving in silence is still the loudest comeback of all. By now, the story isn't just about Irv Gotti's obsession. It's about the wreckage that obsession left behind. Because once you peel back the layers, what Deb Lorenzo lived through wasn't some glamorous hip-hop soap opera. It was emotional chaos disguised as success. The internet has spent years laughing at Irv's wild interviews, but Deb's voice has shifted the tone completely. When she talked about those long nights waiting for him to come home, the constant humiliation, and the way he dismissed her pain, it turned from gossip into something deeper. He'd tell me I didn't understand the industry, she said, but I understood disrespect. When Gotti's Way aired in 2007, it was supposed to be a look at an industry mogul balancing family and fame. Instead, it exposed a man who couldn't stop trying to prove he was untouchable. Every scene of him dodging accountability, belittling his wife, or brushing off her feelings looks chilling now that Deb's filled in the blanks. Those weren't staged arguments for TV. They were real fractures in a marriage falling apart. She described how Irv could turn affection into manipulation in seconds. One day, he'd shower her with gifts and talk about their empire. And the next, he'd vanish into the studio for days, unreachable, unbothered. When she questioned him, he'd say, "You knew what you signed up for," but she hadn't signed up for humiliation. She signed up for partnership. And that's where Ashanti came in, not as the villain, but as the mirror that reflected who Irv really was. When Ashanti entered the Murder Inc.'s circle, Irv's focus shifted overnight. Every decision revolved around her career, her songs, her image. He bragged about molding her, claimed he helped her find her sound, even said he told her what to write about. But behind all that producer talk was something personal. Deb said, he'd talk about her like she was art. It wasn't business, it was obsession. At first, she tried to ignore it. She'd tell herself, it's just the music, it's just work, but it wasn't. She saw the late-night calls, the changes in his mood, the distance growing by the day. When Ashanti and Nelly started dating, Irv's behavior spiraled. Friends remember him walking into studios red-eyed, muttering under his breath, replaying Ashanti's performances like he was dissecting every glance. He was hurt in a way that didn't make sense, one former employee said. He acted like she cheated on him, but they weren't even together. That's what makes Nelly's words sting so sharply now. He didn't say it out of malice. He said it because everyone around them already knew. Irv wasn't angry about a lost artist. He was heartbroken over a woman who never belonged to him. And while Irv was unraveling in public, Deb was breaking in private. Imagine raising children while your husband's name trends for his fixation on another woman. She described nights when the kids would hear her crying, and she'd wipe her face and pretend it was allergies. You learn how to perform, she said, because when you're married to a man like that, everything's about image. Even after Irv's career took a hit, the federal trial, the label drama, the loss of money, he still couldn't let it go. When he finally beat the case, you'd think he'd come home humbled, ready to start over. Instead, Deb says he became worse. It was like he needed to remind the world he was still the boss, she said. And what better way than talking about the one woman who wouldn't come back? He went on podcasts and radio shows reminiscing about Ashanti like a broken record. Every time he mentioned her, Deb said it felt like a ghost walking back into the room. Even their kids noticed. One of their sons reportedly told her, "Mom, why does Dad keep talking about that singer?" That's how deep it went. His fixation became family conversation. By the time Deb finally filed for divorce, the love was long gone. "I didn't leave Irv the day I packed my bags," she said. "I left years before that. I just didn't know it yet." And now, looking back, the picture is painfully clear. Irv's obsession didn't just cost him a marriage. It cost him his peace, his credibility, and the respect of the people closest to him. Even Nelly, who's kept things cool for years, finally admitted how strange it always was. In his recent interview, he said, "I used to wonder why that man was still talking about her. It wasn't about music. It was about control." That comment hit harder than any diss track ever could, because it came from the man Ashanti actually chose, the man who moved on, grew up, and built a life while Irv stayed stuck in the past. The craziest part, Irv could have had a redemption arc. He had the platform, the history, the influence to rewrite his legacy. Instead, he doubled down on the drama. Every time he brought up Ashanti's name, he reminded people of the one story he could never escape, the producer who confused ownership with love. Now that he's gone, that legacy is what remains. Not the hits, not the label, not the empire, but the obsession that defined him. And thanks to Nelly and Deb speaking up, fans are finally connecting the dots. What looked like success was really self-destruction playing out in slow motion. The question now isn't why Irv Gotti couldn't let Ashanti go. It's why nobody stopped him before it destroyed everything he built. By the time the dust settled, Irv Gotti's story stopped feeling like a music saga and started sounding like a cautionary tale. What once looked like an empire built on loyalty, hustle, and hip-hop dreams now reads like a long, public unraveling. And what makes it sting even more is that everyone around him, from his ex-wife Deb to his peers, saw it happening in real time. They just couldn't stop it. When Deb Lorenzo sat down for her new interview earlier this year, she didn't sound bitter. She sounded free. Her voice had that quiet confidence of someone who's finally done protecting a man who never protected her. "I'm not telling this story to drag him," she said. "I'm telling it because it's time people know what obsession really looks like." And that one sentence flipped everything. Suddenly, fans weren't laughing at the old Irv Gotti clips anymore. They were dissecting them. The jokes turned into think pieces, the memes into timelines. Comment sections filled up with people who once idolized him now admitting they'd missed the signs. What they thought was swagger was actually desperation. Those long, rambling interviews about Ashanti weren't just reminiscing. They were emotional confessions hiding behind ego. When the Drink Champs episode resurfaced, the one where Irv casually bragged about falling in love in the studio and making her records, it hit differently now. Back then, it sounded like messy bar talk. Today, it sounds like a man trying to rewrite history from the wreckage of his own choices. And in the middle of all that noise stood Ashanti, still standing tall, still glowing, still refusing to say a single word about him. Her silence became the ultimate checkmate. That silence is also what gave Nelly's comments so much weight. Because for years, people joked about the triangle between the three of them. But when Nelly, calm and collected, said he didn't want to sign her, he wanted her, it wasn't shade. It was closure. It was a truth that had been hanging in the air for 2 decades, finally spoken by the one man Irv could never outshine. And here's what's poetic about it. Ashanti and Nelly's reunion couldn't have come at a more full circle moment. After years apart, they reconnected, rebuilt their bond, and stepped into a quieter love that didn't need to prove anything to anybody. No flashy interviews, no messy headlines, just grown-up energy. When the pregnancy rumors started swirling in 2023 and later turned out to be true, fans cheered. They weren't just celebrating a baby, they were celebrating peace. Ashanti finally got what she'd been denied for years, a love that wasn't tied to her career or her image, but to who she really is. Now, the internet's calling it poetic justice. The woman Irv once tried to mold into his vision has outgrown every man who tried to control her. She's thriving, while his legacy is being unpacked piece by piece. Deb's side of the story only added more layers. She revealed how Irv's jealousy of Ashanti's independence started long before Nelly entered the picture. He'd say things like, "She's forgetting who made her," Deb recalled. "And I'd think, made her what? She worked for it? She earned that?" That quote alone set social media ablaze, because it perfectly captured what so many women in the industry go through. Men who mistake partnership for ownership. By the time Murder Inc. fell apart, Irv's obsession had already written its ending for him. The label that once dominated the charts turned into a ghost town, the artists scattered, and the public goodwill vanished. What was left behind wasn't just a fallen mogul, It was a man remembered for never letting go of a woman who moved on without him, and that's what people are unpacking now. All these years later, Irv Gotti's name doesn't bring up thoughts of chart toppers. It brings up a legacy of ego, heartbreak, and obsession. Fans on Twitter have even turned the timeline into a makeshift documentary, clipping old interviews, posting old headlines, comparing Irv's words with Deb's truth. One viral post said it best: he had the world and still couldn't get over the one who didn't want him. Meanwhile, Deb's finally being shown the empathy she never got when it mattered. People used to clown her for staying with Irv through the chaos, calling her naive. Now they're realizing how deep that situation really ran. Emotional control, financial dependence, manipulation disguised as love. She said she stayed for her kids, and you can tell she means it. I used to think leaving meant failing, she admitted. But staying was what broke me. And when Nelly's clip dropped, she didn't sound shocked, just vindicated. It was as if someone had finally said out loud what she'd been living through silently for years. Ashanti, on the other hand, hasn't had to say a single thing. Her re-emergence this year, touring, smiling, building her new family, says it all. Every image of her glowing next to Nelly feels like quiet revenge for all those years Irv tried to take credit for her light. Because no matter how loud he got, she never needed to match his energy. She knew time would do the talking for her. Even within the industry, you can feel the tone shift. Artists who once tiptoed around Irv's legacy are now being honest. One producer said, he had genius in him, no doubt, but he let obsession kill it. That man couldn't separate love from power. That's the new narrative. Not the mogul who ran Murder Inc., but the man who self-destructed trying to possess what was never his. In the months since these revelations resurfaced, there's been an undeniable sense of reckoning. Hip-hop history is being rewritten in real time, and Irv's chapter isn't as shiny as it once looked. The same charisma that built his empire is now being seen as the weapon that tore it down. And for once, the women in his story, Deb and Ashanti, are getting to tell theirs without being overshadowed. Deb's final interview summed it up with brutal honesty. You can't build love on control. You can't build legacy on lies. Eventually, the truth shows up. And that's exactly what's happening now. Because when you zoom out, this story isn't just about Irv and Ashanti. It's about what happens when ego becomes addiction, when a man confuses admiration with ownership, and when the people who were once silenced finally speak up. Nelly's one-liner might have sparked the fire, but Deb's voice kept it burning. And together, they've done something Irv himself never could. They gave the story closure. Now, fans are rewatching every old interview with a different kind of clarity. That smirk Irv wore when talking about his Ashanti, it doesn't read as confidence anymore. It reads as regret. The kind that eats at you long after the cameras stop rolling. And maybe that's why this moment feels so full circle. Ashanti's finally getting the peace she deserved. Nelly's being praised for standing by her without exploiting her story. And Deb's getting the respect she was denied when everyone thought she was just the quiet wife in the background. So now the internet's asking the real question. If Irv were alive to see how his legacy's being redefined, would he finally admit that he lost everything chasing something that was never his to begin with? Or would he still try to spin it like a love story instead of the obsession it really was? Either way, the truth's out now, and it's louder than any beat he ever produced. It's a lesson in real life, not studio talk. Protect your peace before your pride destroys it. Because once the world sees through the act, there's no going back to the fantasy. And for Ashanti, Deb, and Nelly, this right here is that long overdue peace after years of noise. The empire fell, the truth rose, and what's left is finally just quiet. Yo, one thing's for sure, two things certain. Time always tells, and karma always finishes the verse. If you've been watching this whole saga unfold, hit that like button, drop your thoughts in the comments, and tell me, did Irv Gotti's obsession ruin his legacy, or was it doomed from the start? Either way, the truth finally hit the timeline, and it's not going anywhere.